You can hear us, Pastor Google, and see us well?
We're hearing you pretty okay, and we're seeing you very well.
Good, excellent. So my name is Shakila Daniel, and I'm joined here with my colleague, Ms. Avian Joseph.
That's correct.
Actually, that law, and we are coming to you from D.L. Daniel and Associates, right? D.L. Daniel and Associates, just give me 1 minute, right? Good. So we're coming to you guys live from D.L. Daniel and Associates. It's located at number 1 Taylor Street, Narapita Avenue, Woodbrook. And Let's Talk Legal is an interactive local program to add legal information education to the members of the public. So if you have any questions, queries, concerns, or comments, feel free to engage with us. Ms. Joseph, we had a very spirited conversation last week, Monday.
That's correct. That's correct.
Did you enjoy it?
Most certainly. I thought it gave our listeners a great opportunity to understand a little more about the Mental Health Act and some of the provisions under this act for persons who fall, may not always be as normal as we would like our relatives and friends to be.
Yes. I found that interaction with us to be very, very interesting because I myself learned quite a bit about the Mental Health Act and the provisions that the Act provides for persons to be able to benefit from it. For listeners who may not have had the privilege, I should say, to be involved in a discussion, would you be able to remind me again some of these things that we would have covered in that last discussion?
Okay, so very quickly, we said that under the Mental Health Act, if you have a relative who may not have the mental capacity to take care of their affairs,
right,
usually because of a stroke or some medical illness, depression, and they are unable to do day-to-day things for themselves, go to the bank, feeding themselves, putting on their clothes,
right,
they are not aware of what their property is, manage their affairs. The law provides under the Mental Health Act for what we call a committee or a receiver, that is one of their relatives becomes the legal caregiver of that person to take over his person or her person and the management of his or her property.
Excellent, excellent. So we would have identified that the Act also defines, who the person is, who the patient is. It defines what is mentally ill, etc., as well as who is the committee.
That's correct.
The jurisdiction of the committee.
That is correct.
The Act also provides for persons who may eventually start suffering from mental illness in their old age.
That is correct.
Right. And we have a prevalence of that in the country.
Yeah, because with the advent of COVID, we've been in COVID for probably like 18 months now.
Right.
And as we all know, apart from vaccination, isolation and staying away from interaction with people are some of the ways in which we prevent the virus from spreading. Unfortunately, because of the isolation and the social distance, particularly among our elderly persons, they are inclined to become depressed. They are inclined to suffer from illnesses that you may not be aware of because we are not interacting with them on a daily basis because of the social distance that COVID requires. And so we find a lot of elderly persons are home alone or they are in homes where they do not have their relatives visiting them. And so they can find themselves losing much more of their mental capacity because of this closed-in lockdown environment.
Right. And being in such a position isn't disadvantageous to that person legally? And if yes, how so?
Very much so, because such a person, as you lose more of your mental capacity, you may be unable to do basic bank transactions,
right?
Do a withdrawal, do a deposit. You may be a landlord and you may not even realize the month has gone and you have not collected your rent, you have not interfaced with your tenant, you would have lost your day-to-day, everyday routine. And so therefore then there's need for somebody to step in and take over and help you along.
Right. And that person stepping in and helping must, I would say, should have a measure of control or accountability, lest they take advantage of people.
Absolutely. That is one of the challenges we face. There is a whole lot of elder abuse in our society. There's a whole lot of fraud, powers of attorney made when elders do not have the mental capacity to do it. And so therefore then, under the Mental Health Act, the court provides an avenue for the person who wants to be the caregiver, who wants to take over the affairs, to come and present themselves to the court and give all of the evidence that is required so the court can be sure that you are a suitable person to manage the affairs.
Right. So if I'm understanding you clearly, Mrs. Joseph, the application under the Mental Health Act provides for the proper management of elderly persons who may fall under the jurisdiction of the Act, and also provides order for how such an individual.
But we just need, you're correct, but it's not just elderly persons.
Right.
Anybody who lacks the mental capacity for whatever reason, you need to go to the court to be made the committee or the receiver, or in ordinary language, the caregiver of that person. And bear in mind, we cannot just look at an elderly person and make that decision that he may not be in his right frame of mind. It must be backed up by medical documentation, generally from the GP, general practitioner, and the psychiatrist, who speaks to the issue of the mental competence of the patient.
Perfect. So I think that is a really sound recap of much of what we would have spoken of last week. And listeners can feel free to review that video that we will have posted. We have it on our social media pages and website, DL Daniel Associates. They can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Today we want to continue in understanding now what is really the legal administrative process when this person now has been given or granted an order from the court appointing them as the receiver or committee of the patient. What is the next step now in order to ratify your position?
Right. So you have an order of the court. It can be a final order or it can be an interim order.
Okay.
And one of the big issues is to manage the patient's money.
Right.
Apart from the day-to-day care of medication, etc., managing the patient's money. The patient may be a person who is at an age where he or she is collecting a pension, or may have had some other monies coming into the patient. So you have to go to the bank. You have to be able to access that money. So you go to the bank, and as it is now, if you as the court-appointed caregiver, receiver, or committee of the patient, and you do not have an account at that particular bank, it may not be so easy to just automatically access the patient's money.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
The bank needs to know who you are.
Rightfully so.
Right? And so therefore then you have to establish what is called a database with the bank.
Okay.
And there are certain documents you have to fill out. The bank wants to first verify who you are. So your ID card is critical. They would want a utility bill to confirm that you are at a particular address.
Right.
Then, if you are employed, you would want to work with your pay slip and or job letter. And then there are certain documents specific to the bank that you will have to fill out, like your customer information, who you are.
Right.
What your loans are, what your expenses are, what your income is. So that the bank establishes a database for you. Because in a sense, what the bank says is that this order of the court making you committee is kind of akin to a power of attorney to act on behalf of the patient.
Right.
So if you are already a customer of that bank, they would have had all of that preliminary information on you in your own capacity.
Right.
However, if you're not a customer of that bank, they need to establish a database for you. They will want to do a signature page for you because you're coming in now probably on a monthly basis to withdraw monies to pay the expenses of the patient.
Right.
So they need to know who you are.
Okay, so that seems fair enough, reasonable, and very responsible.
Because because if you are going to open an account with a bank, is exactly what you would have to do.
Right.
ID card, utility bill, fill out certain forms, complete certain forms as to your US status, because we have certain agreements with the US, make certain declarations of certain funds, etc.
Okay.
So it is very much like that.
All right, so I think what the banks are trying to ensure as well is that the patient's business is properly protected.
That is correct.
And that the account is managed in a safe manner.
That is correct. But as you say that, one of the problems that banks in Trinidad and probably elsewhere are facing is the fact that a number of elderly persons come to the bank. They may still be in their right frame of mind, but they are dependent on a child or daughter, etc. And they find them, forgive the expression, bullied. Prepped to withdraw more than they need.
Right.
And so you find elder abuse happening even among mentally competent older persons because they're dependent on their relatives to help them out. And sometimes the bank is strapped.
Yes.
They cannot really help them. So you have a lot of that happening as well. So the Mental Health Act is a way of protecting, helping once it has come to the attention of the court.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we hope our listeners have been able to benefit from the information we've discussed so far and able to understand the application or the relevance of the information to them personally. If you or someone you know, you may suspect of being abused, a victim of elderly abuse, or has a predisposition to eventually being exposed to such, then you can reach out and find out more information for this provision available under the law. Remember, it's not just the elderly as well, right? It's anyone really who would, under the Act, qualify as needing to be protected by it.
Because of depreciating mental competence.
Right.
Or for a variety of reasons.
Okay.
And they can no longer manage their person and or their property.
For themselves.
That's correct, for themselves.
We want to now invite and encourage our listeners, if you have any questions, queries, comments based on what we would have discussed today. And last episode, we will have discussed that people suffering from Alzheimer's, dementia, chronic drug use, debilitating mental health due to diabetes, stroke, etc. All these patients can fall under the protection of the Act.
Because you see, it affects your mental health, your capacity to do day-to-day activities on your own.
I get it. So I'm so glad that locally the law has made a provision for this. And we know that just about 2 weeks ago, on October 10th, we would have celebrated World Mental Health Month.
Right.
Mental Health Day.
Correct. And the thing about it, because we are still in the throes of this COVID pandemic, across the globe, the statistics are showing that more and more persons are suffering from depression in one form or the other, and it's particularly prevalent among the elderly.
Okay.
But as we await a listener calling in, we probably can talk about what are some of the orders that you can get under the Act.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. And one of the big things, as we had said, is access to the patient's funds. You are also given permission to manage the patient's affairs in terms of preparing a will.
I find that to be so legally interesting.
Right, I remember you raised that on the last occasion.
Because I did say that I do love probate law. It's my pet. And oftentimes, as you would know, what makes a will invalid, and I can't wait for us to have a segment speaking of wills and its importance.
Right.
But one of the things that makes a will invalid is the testator, meaning the person writing the will, their mental incapacity. So if they have been found to not have the mental capacity to write the will, it's found to be void.
That's
correct. You are saying that even in such a state or condition, under this act, someone else can do it for them.
That is correct. No, the act gives wide and sweeping powers to the committee, or we call the person the receiver or the caregiver. And it's not just one person, it can be more than one person, can be your committee.
Right.
And you have to pass the scrutiny of the court.
Right.
You have to demonstrate the welfare and the interest, the well-being of the patient as being your priority. Okay. And remember, this is a person who can no longer do it for himself. Right. So you are given the right to step into the shoes of the person.
And even say what they want after them.
That is correct. It's sweeping.
Wow.
We also need to know, because you may not have been able to access the patient's funds, you may have been in a position where you may have been using your personal funds to take care of the medical monthly expenses of the patient, their food, their groceries, etc. The court also allows an order can be made for you to be reimbursed for the monies you would have expended on behalf of the patient while you did not have access to the patient's personal funds.
So, wow. I believe this act to really be very thorough. And once I am seeing the importance of anyone out there really trying to make an application under the act in order for both things to be fairly done, both the care of the patient as well as that the caregiver is fairly treated.
That is correct. But another thing too, no, we spoke about the patient, we spoke about the caregiver. Remember, sometimes illness comes upon you very suddenly.
Right.
And you may have been a business person.
Right.
You may have had a spouse dependent on you. You may have had children in school, university, and you may have been putting out monies towards that. So therefore then, the act takes care of the patient, makes sure the caregiver does what he or she has to do. And it also provides for dependent relatives of the patient. Sometimes we think a patient may not have a dependent relative, but they may.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So it's all embracing.
I love this. So we invite our callers again. If you are now joining us, we're discussing the provisions under the Mental Health Act. We're really focusing on the benefits of it, the advantages, disadvantages, as well as the legal administrative procedure of obtaining a grant or an order under the Act, as well as explaining really the jurisdiction of the order and the power given by the court for such an individual granted. So we want to hear from you now. And Pastor Google, are you still with us this morning?
Yes, I am.
Hello.
Yes, I am. I'm right here.
All right. Feel free to encourage our listeners. Do we have any calls coming in as yet? Any questions? They can feel free to ask now, or any comments.
Okay, so
or even you yourself.
I was thinking too. Did he hear anything that was unusual?
Well,
that of his interest?
Not really. Sorry, not really. I'm pretty abreast of what you're talking about. So
you knew of the act before?
Yes, yes, I am. I'm aware of the act. I'm very.
Oh, very good. Wonderful. In your opinion, have you ever witnessed elderly abuse, especially financially, and see the benefits really of the act?
I've never witnessed elderly abuse, but I've heard about it, and I have had instances where we may have helped people from the radio station who would have reached out to us for whatever reason. All right. So we want to give out the numbers again. 342-0081, 342-0081, 771-1791, 771-1791, 466-5391. You can call us and ask any question along the lines of elderly abuse, and I'm sure that the capable lawyer would be able to answer those questions that you will have, burning questions that you may have to ask at this time. So the lines are open. You can call in, and once the callers coming, then we will certainly put them on for you to hear.
Yes. Thank you so much, and you're welcome to callers. Don't be afraid to call and speak with us, because that is what we are trying to do essentially with these programs, and we're going to be coming to you guys hopefully twice weekly with varying current affairs topics and informing on how the law applies to these topics, making the law accessible, understandable, and relatable to you. And just speak with us. You don't need to call us with any big words or to be intimidated at all. Ask any questions, anything that may come to mind, and we will be able to, have a conversation.
As we await callers coming in, there's an important person in this scenario that we have not dealt with in terms of refresher, the field investigator.
Right, from the court, right?
So we're talking a little bit about the application so you can understand. So you will have filed your affidavit. You would have annexed documents like the medical report. You would have annexed probably a little appendix of the patient's income, the patient's expenditure. Who are the other relatives who will be concerned about this patient? The document is served on those persons, and then it goes to a very important government office, the Office of the Public Trustee.
Right.
And from this office, a field investigator is sent out.
Okay.
Right?
To investigate the claims.
That's correct. Just as the word says, goes out into the field and investigates what you have said in your affidavit to make sure the patient is really a patient, where the patient is, if he's at a home for geriatric persons, elderly, wherever the patient is, or if he's at a residence living with family members, and to generally inquire into the well-being of the patient, and to make a report to the court. So it's an independent assessment.
Okay.
As distinct from what the applicant would have put before the court.
Right.
And then, having the benefit of all of this information, then the court will settle on who can be the caregiver, the committee, the receiver, all meaning the same thing of this patient.
I must add that I may be a little biased on this, but I'm quite proud of the law.
Oh yes, so am I.
Quite proud of the law in attempting to have this process be as fair and thorough as possible, and to provide for accountability.
Good.
From the beginning in terms of the application and even after.
You are correct.
When granted.
You are correct. Accountability at the beginning, during and after. And the accountability during and after comes with the fact that sometimes you are required to present to the court an account of how you spend the patient's money. So the field investigator goes out first and does that initial check, presents a report to the court. Once you have made the committee, the court may sometimes require you to present an account of the income, expenditure, and how the patient's money has been used.
And I think for our listeners who may have elderly parents within a home setting, because of circumstances, you have no choice but to utilize that service, I would feel a lot more comfortable to know that those given that authority to do so is regulated by the law. And in case of any, so suppose I am abroad, I live abroad, and I have a parent or family member locally being taken care of. Under this order, I can be sure of the provision of accountability and redress.
That's correct.
In case there is any abuse of
Absolutely.
power. Yeah.
And we also need to point out, remember we had said on last occasion, the persons who can apply.
Right.
So it's normally your next of kin, beginning order of priority, beginning with your spouse, then a child, a parent, a grandparent, or a brother or sister.
Right.
However, again, because the court is concerned about the well-being of the patient, there are times when the court or the local jurisdiction has bypassed.
You have a caller.
We have someone.
Yes.
Hello.
You have a call on the line. Hello, good afternoon. Good morning.
I have a caller. Welcome, caller. Good morning.
So I was just saying, there are times when the court will have bypassed the relative.
735-0167.
Okay.
Let's hear the caller.
Go ahead, caller.
Hi, caller.
Yes,
Welcome.
I'll leave in my
Ask
number.
question.
Morning. I'll leave in my number when you finish work. Call me on 735-0167.
Okay. So the caller said that he would like us to call him after we're finished, but what I can do is give the caller the number for the office. We didn't quite hear you too well, but you can call us at 241-3772, and I know we may be just about out of time very soon, if not already. So our listeners can feel free to reach out to us for more information at 241-3772, 241-3772, or 769-6410. That number is 769-6410, and talk to us. Let's just have a conversation. We are coming to you from D.L. Daniel Associates Limited, located number 1 Taylor Street and Arabica Avenue in Woodbrook. We are a legal administrative firm interested in democratizing law. I'm hearing another caller, am I correct?
No, not as yet.
Okay, good. So thanks for joining us on Let's Talk Legal. And I think I definitely had some fun this morning.
And we can tell them what they can expect next week.
Yes, we did speak about the committee's ability to write wills on behalf of the patient. I love wills. I'm very excited to talk about that coming up.
So am I.
So what is a will? Do you really need it? And what are the advantages of having one? Does writing a will mean that you're fixing your life? I'm gonna write this will have a day. Does it mean that? You want to go into wills, understanding it, difference between intestate and intestate, and
beneficiary,
exactly, a lot of fun chocolate.
And as we talk about will, not that we are being morbid, we want to let you know another issue coming up soon is about exclusive right of burials.
True. Yes. I remember that.
What happens at La Perouse Cemetery?
Legally. All right. So it was fun being here. Feel free again, of course, to continue the conversation with us. We're here to help and assist you as much as we can. The number to call 241-3772. 241-3772 or 769-6410, 769-6410, or email us at freelancelegaltt@gmail.com. That is freelancelegaltt@gmail.com. Thanks so much for joining us for Let's Talk Legal, legal information and education series, coming to you from D.L. Daniel and Associates, democratizing law. Pastor Google, thanks so much for having us.
Okay then, thank you very much. We're out of time. Sorry about that.
Out of time, yeah.
Conversation. All on Street 91.9 FM. The official station that defends the nation.
All right, Trinidad and Tobago. So we're getting ready to go for headline news with Miss Vanessa Thomas, and she's going to be coming in studio in a short bit. So don't touch your dial. Stick and stay.